This year, we are excited to host a series of informative panel discussions. Our first panel will be a moderated discussion with our state legislative leaders. Please welcome to the stage Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos, and our moderator for this session is Brian Schimming.
How are we doing this morning? So I have to tell you before we start, my office during the Act 10, all the controversy with Act 10 down in Madison, we talked about it a lot on radio, and we were statewide talking about it, and the other radio folks did too. But my office was literally right across the Capitol on Carroll Street. And so every single day, I would walk over into the protests. And the reason that I would do that is I wanted to see it firsthand, and I wanted to be able to say when I went on the air that I was there, and I'd seen it, and there were left-wing blogs sometimes going, he wasn't there, nobody saw him. And but I was there every day. I had pictures and everything else. And I have to say, as we start this, because we don't get together in this format very often, I have to say, as we start this, and I say this not only to these two guys because they're the leaders, but also to the Republican legislators here, thank you. Because nobody should have to put up with that kind of protest when they're running for public office and they want to serve people. And if it wasn't for these two folks, Act 10 wouldn't have happened. So thank you to both of you. Now, we've got some questions here, and we have some time to go through them, and it is particularly important right now because we have state budget. The governor has introduced a state budget, and give me a sense from a budget priorities perspective, kind of what the biggest divisions are between your budget priorities and those of the new governor.
Well, I guess my first impression of what Governor Evers rolled out pretty much played into what we were expecting, which was kind of the greatest hits of the Democrat Party for the last 25 years. It was, he checked every box. It was every liberal initiative you could possibly come up with, trying to reverse a lot of the public policy decisions that Republicans had put in place as a result of control of the legislature and Governor Walker. And then obviously massive tax increases that certainly, we anticipated we would be able to reverse. Thank goodness for the Republican-controlled legislature, and thank goodness for the power of the purse strings that we have. We are truly the roadblock to a complete 180 from where Wisconsin has been over the last 8 years. And that's what this budget is. The governor didn't fail to deliver for many of his friends. And, we're up to the challenge. And the Finance Committee has already reversed the vast majority of those items that were included in Governor Evers' budget as proposed.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Just a quick comment before I talk about the budget. We've been hearing a lot as the RPW has gone through their analysis as to what we continue to do well in Wisconsin and where we can do better. And just like we know that the very base of the Republican Party is you. It's the activists, it's the grassroots, it's the county chairman, it's the people who are the ones that make everything happen so that all of us get the chance to win elections. But in politics for elected officials, the grassroots of elected officials are the people who are in the legislature. because they are also the ones who are the closest to the people, the ones who organize the best, and ultimately help to trickle up, as Senator Johnson says, to make sure that we are all successful on Election Day. So I'd just like all of my colleagues who are here, Republican legislators, if you could stand up to show that we are also part of the grassroots, and let's give them a round of applause for all the work that they do. So the people that you just saw standing are the ones who, as Senator Fitzgerald said, are going to stop the crazy ideas that Governor Evers has offered in response to a very narrow victory last November. That's right. They do deserve a round of applause. Let's remember that when Governor Doyle took over, he had a Republican legislature, and his first budget actually cut state positions. Didn't raise the income tax. It expanded government, but it was something where he at least recognized that he had a divided government between a Republican legislature and a very liberal governor. When Governor Thompson was elected, he had a very Democrat legislature. His first budget did not do a lot of dramatic reforms. He also recognized the fact that he wanted to figure out how to navigate, where to find areas that you could work together, and didn't just try to stick it to the legislature. But we have a governor who is not learning from his predecessors, because he has taken all of the wacky ideas that people who live in Dane County and wear Birkenstocks think are good, right? They have decided that they are going to expand government at every level you can think of. They are going to repeal our welfare reforms. They're going to get rid of the drug testing that we say for somebody who's on benefits. And remember, our policy says that if you're using drugs and you test positive, we don't kick you off of benefits. We just say you have to go and get treatment. Things that you would think are common sense. One of the other areas that frustrates me the most says that if you're on child support right now, and you go and you have a child on Medicaid, right? The state of Wisconsin gets incentives from the federal government to go and make sure that the father of the child is identified for child support and helps to pay the cost of the birth of the baby that he fathered. Right? Does that seem radical? Governor Evers says that's way too hard, so we're just going to have the taxpayers pick up all the costs of those births. Good luck, dads. Only those of us who have insurance will have to pay, right? So we can go through item after item after item that unfortunately our friends in the media don't have enough space to report on all the crazy things that are in Governor Evers' budget. But again, the best news is that almost all of those ideas have already been thrown out by the brave members of the legislature. And the few that are left where we can find common ground, we are going to use our conservative principles to make sure that is what was reflected in the budget that we ultimately adopt when we get it done by the end of June. So lots of work, lots of opportunities for us to show where the contrast is between a guy who I think is out of touch and way too liberal and a conservative legislature that really reflects the vast majority of Wisconsin and the will of where people want us to go.
Well, Mr. Speaker, speaking as someone who lives in Dane County,
Where's the Birkenstocks? I know.
Yeah, right. No Birkenstocks, left them at the hotel. When the governor came in, and you made a very good point, they speak as though they won by a landslide, when they won by literally a switch of 15,000 votes statewide. I mean, think about that, everybody. A switch of 15,000 votes, and you'd think they won 2-1. Is it fair to say, because a lot of the governor's rhetoric after he came in was, he realizes he has to deal with the Republican legislature. It was kind of, let's do all this reach out and, can't we all get along and, all that kind of thing. Is it fair to say that the budget document was even more liberal than both of you expected it would be, given the rhetoric before that?
Well, yeah, and remember, we went through what I would say was an incredibly brave thing to do, which was Senator Fitzgerald and all of the legislators who were in here had a special session last fall to make sure that on all the reforms that we had put into place, that with the click of a pen or the stroke of an executive order, a governor couldn't repeal things like drug testing or change how we do economic development, right? So I understand that if you're a liberal thinking that you were just about to get the keys to the castle, that we made sure that both of us had to turn the lock in order to open up anything that we wanted to do. So we, the first day that we got into office, sent a letter to Governor Evers outlining about a dozen different things that we would want to work together on, right? Fund our public schools, make sure we have broadband in every part of the state, reduce income taxes. So we started off hoping we could find that bipartisan compromise. What surprised me the most is when we took Governor Evers' number one thing that he talked about on the air that he was going to do, which is to pass a middle income tax cut. Wasn't the one that I would have designed, but it was the one that he wanted. Democrats voted no. Republicans voted yes. We sent him what he wanted, and he vetoed it anyways. So I guess I wasn't surprised when he introduced a budget that was focused on pleasing people on the far left end of his base, as opposed to working to try to find people in the middle that perhaps were a Scott Walker supporter but could be won over, or people who had, voted for Scott Walker in the past but took a chance on Tony Evers. I've talked to some of those people, and they are deeply disappointed. They did not get what they thought, which was someone who was going to end the divisive rhetoric. In fact, they've gotten somebody who's played into the rhetoric with people who have made it much worse. If you walk around the Capitol, even today, there's a guy who every morning before dawn takes chalk and goes around the Capitol and says nasty things about Scott Fitzgerald, right? They usually say great things about me, so I don't understand it. But the reality is this guy chalks negative things about legislators, and this is the world that we are living in, where you can't even have a reasonable conversation with a lot of people on the far left because they are so angry and irritated that they don't get their way because they're just so certain they're right. So I guess I wasn't surprised, disappointed, but not surprised.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is that when we were anticipating what the budget might look like, and when we were hearing kind of the back and forth that was going on between the minority party, members of the minority party, and the governor's office, you could tell that even the communication that you would expect amongst the East Wing and the state Senate, in my instance, just didn't exist. So there's a real disconnect on all different levels with this governor. And that's why, you pick up the paper and what you see on the front page is, well, the legislature hasn't met with the governor. And the truth is that the speaker and I have met with the governor twice for 5 minutes since January. I mean, it's just amazing. But I'm not sure. We're gonna try and reignite that. But there's no point person. There's no one that reaches out to the legislature on a regular basis. There's no one that we have any confidence in can actually, kind of deliver the message or uphold the message that, we've got a deal with this governor. That is not the way it worked with Governor Doyle. There was a relationship there that oftentimes was, it allowed us to kind of negotiate back and forth. We just haven't seen that with the Evers administration at all so far.
The Speaker's comments remind me, by the way, that when you come back for the afternoon session, if you're coming to Madison soon, there'll be free pieces of chalk on every chair here in the. So if you'd like to come down and help out on your own, we'll take it. An issue that's getting a lot of attention, got attention through Governor Walker's administration, and the governor and you folks have made a decision on this, and now we're revisiting it with the new governor. The dangers. Help us out and talk about the dangers of Medicaid expansion.
Go ahead.
Okay. So just a reminder, just so some of you might know it, but let me just make sure I explain it. So there are two types of government health care, right? Medicare, where if you are 65 or older, you have paid a premium on your paycheck over the course of your life to help fund insurance for yourself later, right? You have to buy a supplement. There are premiums. You go to the doctor, not 100% of everything is covered. I mean, those are all the things that happen under Medicare. That's funded 100% by the federal government, okay? There's Medicaid, also known as Badger Care, which is a combination of money from state taxpayers and federal taxpayers. In Wisconsin, the breakdown is approximately 60% federal dollars, 40% state dollars, okay? So Badger Care in Wisconsin covers everything from long-term care in a nursing home. It covers senior care drug prescriptions. It covers regular, traditional hospital visits, doctor visits, all those things. In the state of Wisconsin, made a decision under Governor Walker to expand coverage to 100% of the federal poverty level, okay? That means if you earn about $1,000 a month or less, and you are single, with children, or have or a child, you get your benefits for free, okay? No copayment, no deductible, no premium share, no limit, unlimited free health care, okay? That's Medicaid. Under the Obama administration, they increased that percentage to 138% and said that if you take this money, we will pay up to 90% of the cost of that instead of the traditional 60-40 split. So the state of Wisconsin still has a portion of it, but significantly less. So if you're a Democrat, you look at that and say, wow, look at all that free money that we can bring to Wisconsin, okay? Now, that's where the media stops usually telling the story to make it seem like, well, who could be against free money? Who would not want to provide this kind of health care? But let me explain the downside of their proposal and why what sounds simplistic and easy to accept is wrong. So Medicaid right now, and I'm going to make up some numbers to demonstrate the example. So if PolitiFact is back there, these are made up numbers. Let's assume that you have a procedure that costs $1,000 list price at the hospital. Traditionally, a health insurance company will pay 50% of that cost. So a $1,000 procedure, they reimburse about $500, okay? The state of Wisconsin says an average cost for that procedure for the hospital might be $250, okay? So to produce the procedure, $250, insurance company pays $250 for profit and overhead. They actually list the price at $1,000. What does Medicaid pay for that procedure? Remember, the cost is $250, about $100. So that means every single person on Badger Care, when they go to the doctor, somebody else is subsidizing their care. Those of us who have private insurance, right? We're paying that $500 to subsidize the person who's only getting the same care we are, but only getting $100 in reimbursement. So the more people that we put onto Medicaid, the more money that we're all going to have to pay in the private sector to subsidize the people who are on that free government health care. So there was a study done by the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty that showed if we took the Medicaid expansion, yes, the state of Wisconsin would get some more money, but the private sector would have $600 million in increased costs that all of us would pay. So I don't know about you, but I don't think we need to expand welfare when we have a tremendous economy where jobs are going wanting in every city across the state. And we certainly know that if you're on Medicaid, you are trapped in a life of poverty, right? $1,000 a month. If you earn $1,001 a month, immediately use your health care and you have nothing. So why would we not want people to be on the exchange where the federal government pays 100% of the cost? It costs 18 cents a month for the premium, and it's a $50 deductible, and you actually have to follow the same procedures that all of us who are on private insurance have. So as Governor Evers is out there saying, take the money, I want to promise you that it will be over our dead bodies that we do that.
So of the 37 states that have some form of Medicaid expansion now, what you're starting to see is that they're requesting waivers from the administration in D.C., and some of those are being granted. So it is kind of a moving target. I think each and every biennium will probably have to take another look at it. But at the end of the day, I still feel like where Wisconsin is right now under the Republican legislature and Governor Walker is where a lot of these other states are trying to go. So we're already there. And I think at the end of the day, that really is going to be kind of what we can continue to make the case on year after year after year. So the speaker's right. He did a very good job, too, of explaining that, didn't he? But no, I think that at the end of the day, it's going to have to be continually evaluated, because I think there are other states that are either going to take some form of block grant or they're going to ask for a waiver that guarantees federal funding. And that's, like I said, that's a moving target. So.
Talk about the difference between the pro-life record of legislative Republicans versus what you're now seeing out of this administration?
So, like most of you, I felt the same way when you heard the governor of Virginia probably offer the most chilling words that anyone could possibly hear. And that is that, at some point, a mother and a physician would try to make a baby comfortable while they decided whether or not that baby should continue to live. It not only sparked, I think, a national debate, obviously, but also sparked a number of very conservative Republican legislatures throughout the nation to take action. It was kind of a call to arms. And I think we here in Wisconsin are no different. And that's why in the Senate, Senator Roth came to me early on and said, I'm thinking about working on this bill, and it was very clear that there would be a ton of support for that. Our record, the Republican legislature's record on pro-life issues, I think, cannot be challenged. You can go back in the 25 years that I've been in the legislature, and I remember as author of the ban on partial birth abortion in Wisconsin that, each cycle we tried to focus on a specific area that we thought was important with the assistance of Wisconsin Right to Life and Pro-Life Wisconsin and a lot of other groups that, many members of the Republican Party are also members of those organizations. That's always been kind of our strength. We draw kind of our strength on those issues from the grassroots. And this session has been no different. And the Assembly did a good job just this week in taking up those bills and passing them. They'll be on the floor in the state Senate on June 5th. And I think this national debate will continue to move on, to rage on, really until ultimately we see more discussions about, what Alabama did or what some other states are going to do when it comes to pro-life legislation. But I'm very proud of our people. I know Senator Teston is here, who's also working on a bill. Senator Strobel has a bill that he's been working on. So there's a lot of individual efforts from specific legislators, too, in our caucus in and around, the elimination of abortion in Wisconsin.
So I'm 50 years old, okay? I was born in 1968. My mom got pregnant at 17, out of wedlock, in a small town, with a mom who was incredibly strong. They sat down and talked about it, and they decided that they were going to have me, right? That is a discussion that happens every single day in our country right now, where we need to set the example for why we are pro-life, right? Why we believe what we do. So I heard the prayer this morning, and let me address some of those comments directly, okay? It is a continuum of effort to push the envelope to make sure that at some point states get to decide, as they should under our Constitution, the definition of life and what exactly is allowed to happen in a state, right? Roe versus Wade outlawed state restrictions, right? It found a constitutional right. So number one, what has to happen is something has to happen at the federal level, and the states are the ones who are continuing to push the envelope to work through the courts to protect human life. Now, I agree with Senator Fitzgerald. I am profoundly proud of what we have done, especially over the last 8 years, to protect life. Remember, there's a 20-week abortion ban that Planned Parenthood did not even challenge in court because they knew they would lose, right? We are continuing, we have basically defunded Planned Parenthood in Wisconsin. Right. Now, there were some issues that we actually took up this week that, as Senator Fitzgerald said, I don't know about you, but when I was sitting around last session talking with Governor Walker, I didn't think anybody in their right mind would believe that a child who is delivered alive during an abortion would be taken into a room and allowed quietly to pass away, right? It just sickens me. I certainly never thought any elected official would say that that's legitimate. So if somebody says they're disappointed that we didn't pass the Born Alive Act prior to Governor Walker's defeat, I didn't know it was an issue, right? Let's be honest about it. So as soon as we discovered it was an issue, we are introducing legislation, and my hope was, here's one example where Governor Evers, who tells people he's middle of the road and a nice, likable guy, is going to show that he's not a radical leftist like Bill de Blasio and the mayor of Virginia and all these other folks. But we will never know that until the bill gets to his desk and he makes that final decision. The other bill that we passed says that you can't discriminate based on sex selection, color, or their physical disability. Also, since the last time that we got together, the media and many on the left have been making the case why we need to abort children with disabilities, right? So we are now passing legislation to make sure that that can't be a criteria. So I would say this, we are always trying to push the envelope because we all stand for life, right? But give us some credit that what we're doing has been good for the pro-life movement and that we are in a better place today in Wisconsin than we were before Governor Walker started, and that we will continue to keep doing that.
We're at the end of the time for this segment, but I want to do a quick 1 minute for both of you. Kept great legislative majorities in both houses, thanks to the folks and the people in this room, and frankly, thanks to you two and your candidates and your incumbent legislators. For those of you who have run for office before, it's quite an undertaking. Next year's a big one. What's your 1 minute message to folks here today about between now and next November?
I have 8 incumbents that are up for re-election, and we have 3 seats that we're going to target in this next cycle, including the minority leader, Jennifer Schilling. And this cycle is, I know you hear this a lot, this cycle for the state Senate is probably more critical than any other cycle that I've presided over as leader. And once again, I'll just reiterate what Brian just said. I know that the faces that I see in this room have been critical to maintaining that majority in the state Senate, so thank you very much.
We're up every 2 years, so we don't have a good cycle or a bad cycle. We just have a cycle. So we have 63 strong. We lost 1 seat last time to a woman who's going to be a one-termer. I'm not even going to tell you her name because she's going to lose. But let me tell you the things that are most important. You hear all this stuff in the media about the only reason that we have majorities is because of gerrymandering, right? Let me explain a couple things. That really is an insult to the hardworking men and women who work in their district every single day to get elected and the volunteers who do it with them, okay? Tammy Baldwin, in the 2018 cycle, got 55% of the vote. What percentage of the seats, of the 99 seats, do you think she carried? 55%. So there are about a dozen seats that Assembly Republicans currently hold that Tammy Baldwin also carried in 2018. So the majority is never guaranteed. The hard work, the passion, the resources, the ideas that you give to us are going to be the reason that we will continue to have the success that we have had. So I'm optimistic. I know we're going to have a good top of the ticket. I know we're going to have great candidates, and we are going to make 2020 an election that Democrats don't even know what hit them, because we're going to pick up seats there and we're going to pick up seats here.
As we close, I would tell you there's one thing that is standing between Tony Evers and the erasure of the Walker reforms and the Walker years. These two guys. Let's hear it for them.